We continue our special coverage as Gaza's ceasefire came into effect today. After 15 months of conflict, with both Israelis and Palestinians hoping for an end to the endless suffering, a ceasefire has finally taken hold in Gaza. The spokesperson for the Israeli army has announced that the 3 detainees will undergo an initial medical evaluation upon their arrival in Israel. He stated that a special unit of the Israeli army, along with a force from Shin Bet, accompanied the 3 returning detainees to Israeli territory, where they will undergo the initial medical evaluation. The ceasefire and detainee exchange agreement for Gaza has begun, with the first phase set to last 42 days. The truce was scheduled to take effect at 8:30 a.m. Gaza local time, but was delayed as Israel awaited the list of 3 detainees' names. Hamas affirmed its commitment to the agreement, attributing the delay to technical issues on the ground. And now we move on to U.S. President Joe Biden's word, where he's going to give a speech now related to the ceasefire that took place now and the detainees exchange that took place and returned the 3 detainees that returned, and we're still awaiting the 95 Palestinians, mostly women and children, that are going to be back again also in Gaza.
Iran is in the weakest position in decades after the U.S. military helped defend Israel from Iranian missiles and supported Israel's military response inside Iran. Just look across the region. In Lebanon, there's an opportunity for a future free from the grip of Hezbollah. In Syria, a future free from the tyranny of Assad. For the Palestinian people, a credible path to a state of their own. And for the region and the future normalization and integration of Israel with all its Arab neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, who I've spoken with. You know, we've had many difficult days since Hamas began this terrible war. We've encountered roadblocks and setbacks, but we haven't given up. And a special thanks to my team, particularly Brett McGurk, who many of you know, who spent weeks and months working nonstop to reach this deal. Many of those weeks and months out of the country. Today's ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages is a result of a principled and effective policy that we presided over for months. And we got here without a wider war in the Middle East than many predicted. And now it falls on the next administration to help implement this deal. I was pleased to have our team speak as one voice in the final days. It was both necessary and effective and unprecedented. But success is going to require persistence and continuing support for our friends in the region and the belief in diplomacy backed by deterrence. So as we reflect on the news from Gaza today, we also remember all the victims of this war. We're mindful that the pursuit of a lasting peace, while never easy or quick, must always be our calling. So thank you all for listening. May God bless you all. May God protect our troops. I'm looking forward to this deal being fully implemented. And I'm sorry I'm not going to take any questions now because I'm waiting. There's a whole congregation waiting for me. And I'm sure the remainder of the day I'll have an opportunity to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Anything about the condition of the hostages that were released today and the others?
Yes, I've just got a call saying the 3 are released into Gaza, 2 out of the hands of their captors, and they appear to be in good health, but it's early to tell. They may be across the border out of the Gaza Strip into Israel now. I'm not certain. Thank you.
Sir, any concerns about Hamas regrouping?
And this was U.S. President Joe Biden, which of course leaves the United States as the President of the United States. Today is his last day in power. And of course, the speech, in his speech, Biden was, of course, reaffirming and confirming that this ceasefire took place under the Biden administration, and that peace is across the region and has been achieved under the Biden administration. Peace also took place, the words, of course, of U.S. President Biden. Peace took place in Lebanon as well as Syria. Palestinian people are now in peace, and that for the and all of this is for the normalization of the region. Of course, he mentioned that the United States, and on top of the United States is the U.S. President Joe Biden. He never gave up, and he always tried to reach this peace, which he achieved today and that we have been watching now. And of course, President Joe Biden thanked all his team. And he mentioned, of course, McGurk on a special note, and he was very thankful to all the team that was part of this negotiation and this ceasefire that we reached and that he is witnessing now from the United States taking place in Gaza and of course under Israel and under all that's taking place over there. Again, he mentioned that today we reached a deal in Gaza. Success requires consistency was the word, a very important word that was said by the U.S. President Joe Biden. And of course, it's worth to mention that success requires consistency, reflecting news from Gaza, and of course, he paid tribute on top of all for all of the people that we lost throughout the 15 months, of course, whether on the Gaza side and the women and the civilian. Of course, it's worth to mention that over 47,000 people have passed away in the atrocities and genocides that took place in Gaza. And these were the words, and this was the press conference, and he refused to answer any question. Moving on, and for providing more analysis, joining us from Cairo now is Dr. Mohammed Osman, an international relations specialist, and from Jenin by Samir Abhara, a political analyst. Well, a very warm welcome on a very special day, a historic day, and of course, after 15 months of atrocities and genocides, we reach peace. Dr. Osman, a very warm welcome today. How is the process of handing over of both Israel and will help facilitate the first phase of the ceasefire agreement?
Well, so far, the ceasefire deal is being, or at least the detainee exchange dimension or part of the ceasefire deal is being conducted in an orderly manner as planned. 3 Israeli detainees, 3 females were handed over to the Red Cross by Hamas. In return, 90 Palestinian prisoners of war are to be released, including 69 women. So it seems that the implementation of the agreement is going forward as planned. It is part of the first phase of the agreement, which is supposed to take place on the course of 42 days, which will witness the release of about 33 Israeli detainees, alive detainees, in return for about approximately 1,800 Palestinian to 2,000 Palestinian prisoners of war, including 250 Palestinians who are serving long sentences in Israeli prisons. So these are the main features of the agreement, and so far, with the smooth implementation of the agreement on its first day in the exchange part, we are optimistic about its orderly conduct. However, in terms of the ceasefire, it's worth noting that after the ceasefire, hours after the ceasefire, Israel targeted several parts of the Gaza Strip, causing the death of about 10 Palestinians. This is not a good indication. However, it's not surprising. Israel is known to
What's
violate
not a good indication? Sorry, sir, I didn't listen well.
Israeli violations of the ceasefire, not the detainee exchange, but of the ceasefire. Today, they carried out airstrikes that caused the death of 10 Palestinians after the ceasefire went into effect this morning. And of course, this is something that is not strange or alien to the Israeli occupation forces. This is how they conduct themselves around such agreements. However, I do believe that the Palestinians will practice and exercise self-restraint, and they will not indulge in any escalation with the Israelis, because they are keen on ending the suffering of their own people and to put an end to this wicked war of aggression that has been waged by Israel over the past 470 days, causing the death of at least 50,000 people, and that's a modest estimate. Most probably the numbers are much higher, could be as high as 100,000 dead, and also the displacement of about 90% of the population of Gaza, and the destruction of 80% of the infrastructure, a full-scale genocide. So any even halt, or even temporary halt or prolonged halt to this genocidal endeavor will definitely give breathing space to the Palestinian people of Gaza.
Mr. Abhara, I'll be back again, Dr. Osman, to ask you about the Biden last speech as the President of the United States. But first, Mr. Abhara, a very warm welcome, sir. And after more than a year of hardship, how does the ceasefire agreement affect the people of Gaza, and what immediate improvements can they expect in their daily lives?
Good afternoon to you and your viewers. In fact, reaching such a deal wasn't an Israeli choice, but American ones. By the resolution of the United States President Trump, this deal put Netanyahu in a dilemma and caused a political crisis inside the government coalition. Considering the coalition of the hardliners such as Smotrich and Ben Gvir, who threatened to withdraw from the government upon the deal. They put Netanyahu in several scenarios. They cannot oversee the United States, but Smotrich and Ben Gvir rejected the deal, as Smotrich agreed among several conditions and to start the first phase and following the second phase to continue the war. Ben Gvir never accepted it at all and threatened to withdraw from the cabinet. If it is continued, the political future of Netanyahu has already started. He has no several scenarios, but to maintain the government coalition. Netanyahu realized this very well, that the collapse of the cabinet will affect outside the government. Considering the charges are awaiting Netanyahu in case the collapse of his cabinet, several courts are waiting for him that might ultimately end his political future. The deal in itself received an acceptance of the regional powers within Palestine and in the whole countries in the region. Firstly, that ended the process of genocide and gave the Gaza people who suffered throughout the past months just a freedom break, as well as the liberation of the prisoners. That is considered an achievement. Therefore, around 2,000 will be released, were imprisoned in Israel. So we may say that they achieved some of these goals.
Perfect, sir. Dr. Osman, Egypt has played a vital role in facilitating the ceasefire. How has Egypt's involvement influenced the potential for long-term peace and stability in Gaza? This is a question I just want to ask you about. Of course, Joe Biden, U.S. President, last day in office. You heard the speech, of course, and I'd like you to comment.
Well, Egypt, of course, has played a central role in the entire mediation process of the conflict in Gaza. Without Egypt and without the responsible and firm stance of Egypt that was immune to all the kinds of pressure that were exerted by different actors, this agreement would never have materialized. Egypt kept at heart the higher interest of the Palestinian people, along with the main core principles of the Palestinian cause, meaning that Egypt refused any geographical alterations or demographic alterations of the population of the occupied Palestinian territories. Egypt insisted that any settlement should be based on a ceasefire that will not involve the permanent occupation of Gaza by Israel, or the displacement of the Palestinian people from Gaza, or even annexing part of the Gaza Strip. And this is, and of course, the control of the border crossings between Egypt and the Palestinian Gaza Strip should be controlled by Egypt on the Egyptian side and a Palestinian authority or a Palestinian agent on the other side, and by no means by the Israeli occupation. And this is something that Egypt has managed to successfully pitch on the negotiating table over the past few months. And also, Egypt has been keen on the facilitation of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, even after the closure of the Rafah border crossing by the Israeli occupation after they destroyed it from the Palestinian side. The aid went in through the Karem Abu Salim border crossing into Israel and then into the Gaza Strip. So Egypt remained keen on exercising maximum pressure to ensure the delivery of humanitarian aid. 80% of the humanitarian aid that has been delivered to the Gaza Strip over the past 470 days came from Egypt, from the Egyptian government, from Egyptian civil society, from the Egyptian private sector. So Egypt played a role, a substantial role in keeping Gaza alive and helping it wither and survive this genocidal war by Israel. And I think the United States, whether the outgoing Biden administration or the incoming Trump administration, now recognize Egypt's central and instrumental role in maintaining and enforcing stability in the region and finding a peaceful solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And without Egypt, the region, without the pivotal role of Egypt, the region will be much less stable, much less prosperous, and way more prone to conflict. Egypt's responsible, patient, and reserved course of action that did not succumb to any provocation by the Israeli side or any other party was also instrumental in maintaining stability and peace in the region. And this is something that if we will have a main protagonist who can claim an actual role of chivalry in this equation, it will be the Arab Republic of Egypt and the Egyptian leadership under President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
True, sir. For the past 15 months, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi did not give up on the Palestinian cause since the start of this of course, genocides and atrocities that took place since the 7th of October 2023. Mr. Abraha, what role can the international community play to ensure that this ceasefire becomes a stepping stone towards a permanent solution for Gaza? What role can the international community play to ensure that this ceasefire becomes a stepping stone towards a permanent solution for Gaza?
The international community and the international group have welcomed such a step, consider it as a phase of what the after the end of the war, based on that there is specifically the brothers in Egypt and Saudi Arabia, Jordan, as well as the United States, the European Union. And it seems that there is a dire will of the international community to end the Palestinian case following the tension that echoed throughout the world. And in the universities in Europe and America, as there is an issue named the Palestinian cause that caused intentions for the international community, and the Palestinian people should acquire their rights. I believe that there is a project before the upcoming U.S. president, and it seems there is a very complicated issue in the region regarding the Palestinian cause, but it seems there are encouraging signals by the U.S. president to start to work to put an end of the Palestinian cause. Normally, with the consultations with Egypt and Saudi Arabia, specifically in Saudi Arabia, it is expected that Trump has promised Netanyahu by the acceptance and the truce to start the project, to start it in the first term, such
Sure, I
as Abraham
understand
Agreement.
that Saudi Arabia, of course, has an important role in this, and its relationship with Donald Trump is very close and intact. Is it the United States, or is it Saudi Arabia or Qatar you're discussing now, which played an important role in this ceasefire?
I'm talking the Israeli normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia. The deals Qatar and Egypt played the pivotal role communicating with Hamas elements and to extract
Okay, so I was
the
clarifying everything.
I was talking about that one of the matters that Trump promised to Netanyahu through the approval of the exchange deal to start the process of normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Yet Saudi Arabia provided the normalization by the establishment of the Palestinian state. So, through which we may say that the solution of the Palestinian cause would be started through Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Jordan, that they have role based in the geographically and the Arab stances, and defending for many years on the Palestinian cause. They called always by the necessity of the Palestinian people to acquire their rights. Even the United States, when it started the process of peace, that was the cemented convention that the Israeli security didn't have happened without establishment of the Palestinian state as signing the Oslo Agreement, but
Got you,
never
sir. I'll be
committed.
back again, but I'll ask Dr. Osman first. Sir, the United States played a key role in mediating the ceasefire. And I asked you previously in this program now, sir, the Biden, of course, administration ends, of course, today its rule of the United States, and U.S. President Joe Biden is his last day in office today. Tomorrow is a new day with a new president of the United States. President Joe Biden made a speech a few minutes before I was with you in the program, and you heard the speech. What is the core of this speech and the importance of the speech from your own perspective, sir? And how do you think that the incoming Trump administration will respond to the evolving situation in Gaza, especially considering reports of Trump's involvement in facilitating this deal?
It remains to be seen how the Trump administration will respond to the entirety of the Palestinian question during his upcoming term, which is supposed to start within a few hours. The Biden administration played a very, very deconstructive role and a passive role in terms of managing the Palestinian-Israeli issue over the past 4 years, even before the 7th of October and the Gaza war and the subsequent regional escalation. And after that, they basically supported Israel along every step in its genocidal endeavors and in its irresponsible, rash, foolhardy, escalatory policies that they adopted in the region that caused havoc and tens of thousands of deaths everywhere. So it doesn't seem that the Biden administration had any pristine record that we can speak of, and certainly all the speeches in the world will not absolve Joe Biden and his administration from responsibility for what has transpired in Gaza. Trump, however, even though he's a very pro-Israeli person and adopts a very pro-Israeli rhetoric in a surprisingly aggressive manner in his first administration, surprisingly enough, before even assuming office as a president-elect, he managed with actual substantial pressure on Netanyahu to achieve within a few days what the Biden administration could not achieve in 1 year and 3 months. And that
okay, Dr. Osman, I don't want to interrupt you here, but I just want to ask you one question before we wrap up this episode and this special coverage. Do you witness today as a historic day in the history, or are you optimistic? And sir, of course, it's worth to mention that Benjamin Netanyahu is one of the global leaders that took the initiative to call Donald Trump upon his victory when he took office, before taking office, of course, when he won the campaign, and to congratulate him, betting on the United States as an ally. Your take, sir, in 10 seconds, because I have to wrap up.
I am, in a nutshell, I am cautiously optimistic. I think
cautiously optimistic.
Yes, there is a legitimate chance.
So you don't treat today as a historic day, sir?
I think it is a historic day. It is indeed a historic day, and it will be even more historic if the results are sustainable. As for Netanyahu, I think Netanyahu was disappointed by Trump. Trump disappointed him greatly. Will Trump continue to disappoint Netanyahu, or will he compensate him later on with even greater support and more concessions to his aggressive genocidal policies? That remains to be seen. Or will actually Trump push for the removal of Netanyahu, who became basically a toxic leader who is doing more harm than good to the United States and Israel? Maybe that is something that we might see. And then indeed, this will be a historical moment and a pivotal moment in the history of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, dear Rana.
Hopefully, Dr. Mohammed Osman, and with your words, cautious, optimistic, historic day, and of course, all you wish for is the sustainability of this truce. I thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Osman, an international relations specialist, and Samir Abraha, a political analyst. Thank you very much for your valuable, informative knowledge and insights. That brings us to the end of our special coverage for this hour. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News and, of course, minute-by-minute coverage on every detail that's taking place in Gaza and Israel this minute.